Are you a guilty parent? Are you the type of parent that feels guilty all the time because you're always shouting at your children and that makes you feel guilty? Because you remember when you were a child and your parents shouted at you, you didn't like it. So you're assuming that that's how your child might be feeling too. And perhaps they are. The only way that you're going to find out how they're feeling is if you actually ask them. It's about communicating. And when you communicate that with your child, like say you had an argument with them this morning before they went to school and they went off to school crying, and you now feel guilty because you can't speak to them. You can't like make it right. You can't say sorry because that's what guilt is. It's about acknowledging that I've made a mistake and then saying sorry. But if you can't say sorry because they're at school and you're thinking all day they must be really, really upset, and they might be, how does that make you feel? Makes you feel like a guilty parent, right? So I want to try and encourage you to acknowledge the feeling of guilt, but don't define yourself as a guilty parent. Don't define yourself as, I'm not parenting right because I've caused my child to feel upset and they've cried. And it might have been over something quite trivial as well, like hurry up and get dressed. Have you got your bags ready? All these demands that you've put on your child in the morning that for them has triggered something in them, and it's just created this kind of like explosion of argument in the house. And then they're crying, they've gone to school, you're left at home thinking about it all day. So when they come home, this is what you can do, and you probably do this anyway. Communicate that with them. Say, this morning, what happened, explain the thing that happened, and don't overdo it either, because they've been at school all day, they don't want loads of information. And also another thing, they've probably forgotten about it, but they might not have. So that's why it's good to bring it up and highlight it and just say, like, I'm sorry about what happened this morning. That is if it's something that you did. So if you lost it and you were shouting at them and it's not justified, then that's where the apology comes. The point of what I want to say here is you're feeling guilty because you've caused them to cry and you can't say sorry. So you're sat with that feeling all day long. So when you want to apologize to them, what are you doing it for? Are you doing it because you want to restore the relationship, or are you doing it so that you can teach them how to apologize when they make a mistake? Or are you doing it to make yourself feel better? It's irrelevant, okay? This is not about a right or wrong. I'm doing this video just to talk about and discuss guilty parenting. Guilty parenting can back up, and before you know it, you start questioning your own parenting, and then tiny little things that were never a big deal become massive, become huge, and then it just disrupts the whole family dynamic because you feel like you're a guilty parent. Say to yourself, you're human first, okay? We're all human first. We all have our normal emotions. We all have our own life, our own stuff to be dealing with. You might be a full-time worker, part-time parent, lone parent, single parent. You might have lots of kids. You might only have one child. It doesn't matter about what sort of environment or situation that you're in. What matters is how you perceive yourself as a parent. And if you are calling yourself a guilty parent, or I'm really, really rubbish at parenting, it starts to show. So if you are feeling guilty today, especially for some of the posts that I have put on social media, because I'm hearing feedback that it's triggering guilt in a lot of people that are reading it. Part of that is I'm trying to bring awareness, okay? I don't want to cause people to feel guilty. In fact, I'm not causing people to feel guilty. That comes from within you. That's your shadow talking. But I just wanted to share this video that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay. Okay. That guilty feeling is a normal feeling. We have that to tell us we've made a mistake, and we can say sorry and we can put it right. Shame, on the other hand, is toxic guilt. It's when you start to see yourself as a mistake. So rather than saying, oh, I made a mistake this morning when I upset my child, and I recognize the feeling of guilt, if you start to identify yourself as being a bad parent, I'm rubbish at parenting, it is all my fault, that's shame talking. So how to combat that? Acknowledge the mistake. I caused my child to cry. Now, some children are oversensitive. I was a very oversensitive child when I was younger, cried all the time. So the slightest thing, just a voice being raised was enough to trigger my emotions. And I could never verbalize that because I wasn't aware really how I was thinking and feeling when I was a child. But I can imagine maybe that did something in my parents. They may have felt all day bad. They felt guilty for causing me to cry. And if that's you, then just know that you've made a mistake. It's just a mistake, and it doesn't define you or your parenting. And if you want to explore that further, then please DM me and we can set up a discovery call where we can talk about what it is that you are struggling with, and then decide whether we'd make a good fit, whether we could work together. Because if we don't gel, then the communication, then the discussion and the conversation, it won't flow very well. And that's why I have discovery calls, because I don't just say yes to everybody. And I don't expect people who contact me to say yes to me. So DM me, we'll set up a discovery call, we'll talk about the feeling of guilt that you might be having, and then explore ways of how I could help you. And I look forward to hearing from you soon.